What's up everybody? So today we're going to look at climate change and the issues around that. Now whatever you think about climate change, whether it's real, it's caused by humans, whether it's not real, whatever, I think there are a few things we need to look at. And I'm going to start with this article from Zero Hedge on Thursday, and it's authored by Peter Schwab of the Epoch Times. It is quite a long article, but I've kind of brewed it down to the basics. Let's have a look at this. It says apocalyptic climate and environmental catastrophes of global proportions have decimated the world many times over in recent decades, at least based on dozens of predictions made by various scientists, experts and officials over the past 80 years. Newspaper clippings documenting the predictions were recently published. Many were first collected by geologist and electrical engineer Tony Heller, who frequently criticises what he considers fraud in the current mainstream climate research. The predictions, some going as far back as the 1930s, not only at times contradict each other, but sometimes foretell the same imminent catastrophe repeatedly for years, even decades, seemingly undeterred by past failures. So it started out, the first one of these was from a Pennsylvania paper in 1939 talking about the Arctic meltdown. All the glaciers in eastern Greenland are rapidly melting. Then in 1947, Hans Alman in the West Australian said, "The Arctic change is so serious that I hope an international agency can speedily be formed to study the conditions on a global basis." The glaciers of Norway and Alaska are only half the size they were 50 years ago, said Dr. William Carlson, an Arctic expert, in 1952. And then there are now 6 million square miles of ice in the Arctic. There was once 12 million square miles, and that's from a 1955 New York newspaper. Then it seemed the problem switched over in the 60s to overpopulation. It was said, "It's already too late for the world to avoid a long period of famine," Salt Lake paper in 1967 reported, citing Paul Ehrlich's predictions of famines by 1975. Ehrlich proposed lacing staple foods and drinking water with sterilizing agents to cut the growing population of the United States, and predicted that America would be rationing water by 1974 and food by 1980. Then it switched over to global cooling. So scientists predict a new ice age by the 21st century, the Boston Globe reported in 1970. Air pollution may obliterate the sun and cause a new ice age in the first third of the new century. By 1975, the Washington Post, the Guardian and the Time magazine ran their own stories on the predictions of a coming ice age. Then in the New York Times 1978, an international team of specialists has concluded from indexes of climate that there is no end in sight to the cooling trend of the last 30 years, at least in the northern hemisphere. A year later, the paper was reporting the opposite, a prediction of an Arctic meltdown, blaming global warming caused by carbon dioxide emissions. The Chicago Tribune, though, was still reporting the global cooling narrative in 1981. So by the late 1980s, the narrative had switched to global warming for good, again predicting polar ice melting on a catastrophic scale. A senior environmental official at the UN, United Nations, Noel Brown, says entire nations could be wiped off the face of the earth by rising sea levels if global warming is not reversed by the year 2000. The small nation of the Maldives was threatened to be completely covered by a gradual rise in average sea levels. This is from a French newspaper in 1988. But it said it would end sooner if the drinking water supplies dried up by 1992. So, some scientists have argued the Earth is currently undergoing warming, largely caused by carbon emissions due to fossil fuel burning. Other scientists disagree, assigning the dominant effect to other forces or even disregarding the warming as insignificant. Now, Pardon me. Now we say, at this point, we say climate change because we really don't know whether it's global warming or global cooling, or even if humans are having any effect on the atmosphere at all. Now, I'm not a climate scientist and I wouldn't claim to know any of this either, but what I do know is that there is narratives to be made. These narratives of any kind of climate change, you are not allowed to question those narratives, and if you do, you're a climate denier. It goes into a second story from RT about a German car fan page. Let's have a quick look at this article. So, amid brewing tensions, car fans who see their passion under threat from an environmental lobby banded together this week on a Facebook group entitled Fridays for Displacement. That's a play on the Fridays for Future school strike movement started by Greta Thunberg last year. They say climate change has existed throughout the Earth's history. We cannot save the world at the expense of thousands of jobs in Germany. So since its launch on Sunday, the group has picked up nearly 400,000 members. By contrast, Fridays for Future has only 75,000 likes on Facebook. Now, according to Pew Research poll published earlier this year, 71% of Germans see climate change as the number one threat to their country, ahead of terrorism, cyber attacks, and the fluctuations of the global economy. However, resistance from car enthusiasts has been building, with some motorists even seen plastering "F you Greta" bumper stickers on their cars. Now, if the orderly German social media is any indication, the internet is increasingly becoming the battlefield of equally fervent believers and deniers, and the tone of the debate has become that of an all-out flame war. So, no matter what you think of these questions and what you think of Greta Thunberg, when I saw that video of her speaking at the UN, all I could see was a very unhappy girl. Now, young people should not have to go through life worrying about impending disaster of the climate and that this is going to be the end of the world, and this is clearly affecting their mental health. Imagine if they actually believe all this stuff and they do believe the earth is doomed. Why would they get up in the morning? Why would they go to college if the earth is going to be destroyed in the next 12 years? You know, that's something we've really got to consider. What are these narratives doing to our children? Anyway, thank you very much for listening to the video. Like, share, subscribe if you appreciate what we do.